track has an insurance limitation where we can only have 33 cars racing at the same time, and there's so many cars this weekend, we're actually over that amount by a few. So yesterday, Saturday, we split into 2 grids. We had vintage running separately from modern sedans, and then that way there's only about, the biggest group was about 25 cars, I think. But just because cars break down, a few guys broke down, and we got back under that magic number 33, so we were able to combine all the cars back on track again today. So the first race was the start was actually pretty normal. There was a couple guys in the mix that, well, I'm not used to racing with. Usually the vintage guys are doing run separately, but it was very similar, except towards the end of the race, where all of a sudden there's a lot more traffic and a lot more lapping to do. And Clint was in first, and then Al was in second, I was in third, and we were running this neat little train for almost the entire race. And then through just traffic, everybody kind of had their hiccups with traffic, and you know, sometimes traffic goes in your favor and sometimes it goes against you. It kind of depends on where people line themselves up and just how it all shakes out. Anyways, ended up starting third and finishing third, and that was fine. It was a good clean race, and after sort of the mess at the end of yesterday, I'm trying to keep my nose clean and just not get into any trouble.
The front of the pack is going to be catching up with car 2-2. Get your blue flags ready as the mopping begins.
The second race we just finished was, I started third place again because I finished third in the first one this morning, and it was very hectic. There's one of the vintage cars was fast and very low to the ground, so really hard to see, and he was just darting in and around cars, and I was just cringing the whole time because I thought this is going to be a big accident, and I fear for that man's safety because that's a tiny little car compared to the Civics that, you know, it's like a go-kart racing against a truck or something almost. And sure enough, him and Al had coming together into corner 6, and I was right behind it, and cars were spinning off and going across the track, and I just backed off and tried to look where nobody was coming towards to find a clean spot to get through without running into anybody, and made it through okay, and they were all able to continue, so I guess it was just a little bit of rubbing, no big deal. But I was a little concerned actually watching that. It looked worse than it was, I guess. After the first race, we had a bit of an issue where we weighed the car, and I was about 10 pounds under the minimum that I can be. So they were saying, although I weighed myself the last race weekend and I was 10 pounds heavier, and I also added 25 pounds of ballast for safety, so I should be 35 pounds heavier, but somehow I'm 10 pounds lighter. I'm not really sure what happened there. So they said they were disqualifying me for the race this morning, which I don't necessarily agree with because there seems to be some discrepancy with the scales. And basically, to combat to add some weight to the car, I just ran a full tank. Normally I go out with a little over half tank. I went out with a full tank, which is an extra, 4 gallons, which is like 28 pounds or something, which was more than enough. And so when I left I weighed myself before I went out, and I was 22:38, and then when I came back after racing for 20 minutes, I was 22:37, which means that the scales are out like 15 pounds, because in that time I burnt like 2.5 gallons of gas, which is about 16 pounds. So something's off there. Anyways, I mentioned that, and we measured how much fuel actually got used and kind of gave an indication of like what the plus minus is on the scale. So we'll see what happens with that. But one more to go. And I guess I'm having a little bit of an issue. I think I've kind of worn out my front tires a bit, so I'm going to do some rotating just to get that last bit of life out of them for the last event. But I think after I do that, the car is going to be really quick. It was really quick in the first race, and it's a little bit slower, a few tenths in the second race pretty consistently, so I just need to find a little bit more grip. But I think rotating the tires and finding a set with a little bit more life in them is to put on the front right especially is going to make a big difference. Anyways, one more to go. Finished the last race and it was all right. Started in second, I guess, and ended up fourth. And I was hoping to rotate my tires, as I mentioned before, but I had the car jacked up. We were just about to start, and then I noticed that everybody's lining up to go out. So I guess the schedule got pushed ahead, and I just didn't know that had happened. So kind of ran out of time. So, you know, it's a little bit slower, but it was still fun. There was Al, Johnny, and Jordan, who hasn't really been racing for a bit, and he's come back now and having a good scrap out there. It was a lot of fun. It's a good way to end the day. It's been kind of a high drama weekend, but that's racing. That happens, I guess. And that's, I guess, part of the fun of it, right? We got one more race weekend this year, and looking forward to that. And yeah, so it's been I don't know, it's been kind of an up and down season, but it's a good shakedown. I kind of pretty much got all the things under control with this car, and it's quick when everything's working, so that's good. But basically, there's a couple little issues. There's an electrical issue. Sometimes the car shuts off. It did it in the second race for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds, and then came back on, and then was fine after that. So, you know, there's only a few things that could be, so to figure out what that problem is. But other than that, the car works pretty well. So, you know, next year we'll have it sorted out. I was kind of hoping that, you know, we'd have this car sorted out in a weekend, but it's been more like 3 to 4 weekends, 3 weekends, I guess. But it's pretty good. So yeah, next race is coming up soon, so that'll be a good wrap up to the year, hopefully, and yeah, hopefully it's a good event.
Look at this.
Please.
Where's Connor?
You could definitely.
I can't believe it.
FIA, you think? It looks a lot cooler than mine.
You should have, you know, you should have wings or cape. You should have a cape.
I left my cape at home.
Oh, look.
Connor.
He needs a, yeah, too bad. He needed a cape.
No, I'm just kidding. It's underneath my suit. I just gotta dig it out.